Welcome back to another video in Finding Freedom, or Alpha Gents if you're watching this. So check this out. Now the title is Fast, Slow with Turns. What does that mean exactly? Well, if you're in life, you know that, well, life is not, well, a straight line. Sometimes it has turns, sometimes it has curves, sometimes it's like a waltz or a dance, right? It's quick, quick, slow, quick, quick, slow. Or like if you're learning martial arts or learning how to fence, right? When Zoro was teaching his, person that was coming in to take his place, he said, slow, boom, the person attacked, he blocked it. Slow, boom. And you hear other people, if they're in the military, or you watch movies in the military, slow is smooth and smooth is fast, right? So let's get into this a little bit, right? Now, you have to look at things with the idea that nothing is as it seems and something could always happen, right? And that there can be signs hidden right in plain sight. Let's take the movie Leave the World Behind, right? Don't you think it's weird and ironic that the little girl who was impatient, just wanted to get her way, wanted to see the end of the movie, right? Or the end of the TV show Friends, right? Who was it? You had Ross and a couple other people in Friends, etc. Now, if I could utilize this in my own life, I would take my uncle and my little sister. My little sister would be the little girl that just doesn't care about anything. Could have helped a lot of people, but just wanted to see what happens at the end, so she just grabbed the last episode. And then, of course, my uncle, not realizing what she was doing because she doesn't know how to, well, tell the truth. And she's a little Bellatrix sometimes, a little bit of Wednesday, and lost her Hermione presence, right? But I mean, think about it. You watch that, Leave the movie behind, Leave the World Behind, right? And then in real life, a character from Friends passes away. You see Charlie Kirk, and if somebody's referred to as Captain Kirk or whatever, and that person gets attacked, well, are they trying to state something, right? What if they played Stomp the Yard, right? And then all of a sudden when Chris Brown is performing, they take Chris Brown out, and then the person that, well, looks up to Chris Brown or has something in common with him gets taken out. Is that a clear enough message for people to understand, to pay attention better to what's right in front of them, right? If Captain Kirk was real and they played Charlie Kirk and that whole thing, he was dating a blonde chick, and then all of a sudden the real Captain Kirk ended up getting attacked somehow, and then everybody kept failing Kobayashi Maru because they wanted to end up like Kobe Bryant and his daughter, who died in a helicopter crash, because they just wanted to see something happen and they didn't know when to stop or when to listen and act, because they didn't want to trust Captain Kirk. They didn't like his methods, right? They didn't want people to pass Kobayashi Maru. So they created a hint, right? They have the Charlie Kirk incident that tells Captain Kirk something. Captain Kirk tries to tell the crew. They say they're untouchable, and then realizing that the person that's saying they're untouchable is Captain Picard. And Captain Picard gets, into conflict a lot of times, but he also has a lot of backup, right? He has Data, he has Worf, he has other people, etc. He has the lineage that came from Captain Kirk, because Picard came after Kirk came before. So you also have to realize that the Kobayashi Maru exam was different and changed after Captain Kirk. It's like taking an exam and trying to cheat on it by installing a Game Shark or playing a video game or thinking that it's a game, and then realizing you keep getting it fucking wrong because not even the cheat codes are helping you to a certain point to pass the test, right? So think about that, right? Leave the world behind, and then all of a sudden one of the characters passes away. Interesting, right? Now, if you are going to drive, you better have handles, right? Why? Because as I stated earlier, life is not a straight line. Sometimes you have to pivot and drift, especially if you're going very fast and there's a sharp turn, etc. How do you control everything in the chaos that occurs when you're in a drift, and the chaos that occurs when life actually hits? And situation where it's really good to go straight and pretend you're in NASCAR for a moment, but when NASCAR turns into rally or Formula One, all of a sudden you have to factor in other things. You have to factor in terrain. Is it snow? Is it wet? Is it dirt? Is it gravel? Is it this? Is it that? Is it high speeds, high velocity? How much weight am I carrying, etc.? Factor those in so that you can handle the situations when they come up. If you try to play life like it's NASCAR, then stay on the highway, because that's a straight line, right, for a long period of time, and it's easy to drive there for a specific reason, because the quickest distance between 2 points is a straight line. But life is not like that, which is probably why certain people, well, get distraught in business, right? They think, well, I could just copy or do what this person is doing it exactly, and it'll work for me because it worked for them, right? Not taking into account their training, their background, their education, if they took the time to study and read, etc., and did they surround themselves with other people that were more experienced or not in certain fields, so that they can learn from them as well. If they try to skip the line of everything that was just stated, and their life is not going the way that they wanted to, they're catching lawsuits and everything else, well, then you know that they were cheating. And I know the expression goes, if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying, but I've only heard that in the sales field, right? Never heard that in the marketing field. Never heard that in other professional fields, because of the fact that if you're speaking to masses, marketing makes the money, sales handles objections, right? Finance manages the money, operations distributes it accordingly, right? And then technology has to be involved to a certain extent in order to manage the larger amount of customers, yes or yes, right? Same thing in life. You're doing things by yourself, you may get some support, it's easier that way, and then all of a sudden everybody turns on you, calls you crazy, this, that, and the third. They don't know what they're saying, they've never done it before, they never experienced it before, and they don't understand vernacular. See, in marketing, you get taught vernacular, communication, definitions, and everything, because it's vital to the way people communicate and understand things. So if someone is broke or not rich or wealthy, and I don't mean rich as in it could go overnight, because that's also a code word to, well, point somebody out who you think is whatever rhymes with the word rich. But wealthy people are healthy people, because they're able to survive multiple generations, right? And their multiple generations, kids, grandkids, etc., are able to survive from that. So if they are making, let's say, 70, 100, or $500,000 or $1 million, that could go very quickly. You're rich, right? But if you're rich or broke, right? Broke meaning you have no money, you're probably using credit or whatever, you're day-to-day, or you're trying to even make $100 a day just to get by, well, then your mentality is different, your training's different, etc. But then you start to pick up on certain patterns and trends that occur. Now, when this happens, you have to realize vocabulary is important. Just like in the medical field, vocabulary is important. There's about 20 words that describe a certain type of pain. Is it sharp? Is it dull? Is it this? Is it that? Similar concept. If somebody is broke, they are crazy or have a mental health issue. If they're rich or wealthy, they're eccentric, right? This is the way people communicate, code, and identify with each other certain things, because, well, they're trying to figure something out, or trying to communicate in such a vernacular that which you do not understand. Remember, I stated that a doctor could come out and state, oh, we're going to perform heart surgery, or be more specific and state we have to perform cardio bypass, right? Do you know what cardio bypass is? Or we have to install a stent into the artery, etc., because there's too much plaque buildup. The person, disregarded certain things in order to prevent that plaque buildup from happening. They have a 90-something% blockage in one of their arteries, and if they do not get this stent put in their heart or in one of the arteries that leads to it, they're going to have restrictive flow and they will end up dead. So these are the things you have to understand. If you do not understand what someone is saying, ask questions. If the person that's supposed to be answering the questions gets upset, one or two things is happening. Either they want to say something because you're frustrating them, or they aren't well trained and groomed on having a lot of speech or communication, right? It happens, right? And then of course there are others that are trained that are able to do stuff or guide you to a location in which you can then educate yourself. Similar concept in marketing if you're in business, right? Because you want to do business with somebody, but you just check out their website. But if they're trained, then you have marketing qualified leads. Oh, let me download this free pamphlet. Here's my email, here's my phone number. Or you want to go on a date. Let me make the approach, like checking out a website. And then of course, oh, here's my number. Let's go on a date. That's a marketing qualified lead if they open up the email, if they show up to the date, right? And then from there, they can determine further. Now, the real portion of it is the bottom area, right? If you want to turn it into a relationship, now you enter into sales, right? Because you have to answer objections. Why should or should they not date you or be with you or partner up or work with you? See, working for and working with are two different things. Working with someone puts you as equals and you get treated as such, similar to Marines after graduation. The whole drill instructor concept or the way they speak changes because respect was earned, right? So they speak like normal people, they're accepted, etc. The drill instructor mindset only comes into place when recruits are literally in training, right? Or they're moving to a different unit. They did a lat move into a different job and they're being trained on what to pay attention to. If they are trying to mess around and try to do that to the instructor will quickly, well, correct them or send them to somebody who can run correction programs, right? And that's understandable, right? Why? Because there is a difference, right? Just like a difference between approaching somebody at a bar or club, getting them to a date and then turning that into a relationship, going to someone's website, downloading a PDF, a pamphlet, whatever the case may be, to answer some more questions or to educate them to get some understanding, which is what a date is about, right? To get further understanding. And then sales. I'm really thinking about this and asking hard questions, right? Where do you see yourself? What do you want out of life? Can you have children or do you want children? Etc. Right? And then you make determinations from there. And in sales and business, so on and so forth, you will understand this, right? Oh, well, why should I purchase this vehicle? Why should I get the one with the leather seats? Or why should I get the one that's preferred versus the one that is from Europe, right? I heard the repair bills on Olivia were extremely expensive, right? So why should I go with a German car when I can literally get another vehicle that does the same thing, looks almost the same, but has a different logo and is a lot cheaper, right? What is the benefit there, right? What's the added value? What makes you better than the other person? Because at the end of the day, you're not the only person on the block that's hitting on this person. You're not the only person on the block that does what you do, etc. So what are the benefits, not the features, right? You can have a great body, that's a feature. But the benefits, right? What comes with that individual? You can get breast implants, etc. and have everybody look at you. Oh my God, touch them, feel them. Oh my God, does it feel real? Does it? And you're getting all this attention and everybody wants to sleep with you because you have a feature, but are there benefits added with that? Meaning, are you educated? Are you smart? Are you able to pick up on what people are saying? Are you able to understand vernacular? Do you guys get along, etc.? Did you actually date and consider something and it scared you and you ran away? Or did you just not want that to happen because you wanted to continue to live a single life and have your cake and eat it too, which is perfectly fine, right? You know, a lot of people talk about relationships, this, that, and the third, but if you want to hang out with X, Y, and Z, shouldn't the other person be able to do the same, right? Some people will say yes, some people would say no. It comes down to a level of understanding within the dynamics. If you need variety, I'm gonna need variety in another area. You wanna go on a girls trip with whatever, and then your ex-husband shows up and it's supposed to be a secret, or I'm supposed to trust you, well then I'm gonna go out on a guy's trip and we're going to Vegas and I'm gonna show you all the other people that are hanging around us, And then if you get upset, you can't because, well, you're with your ex-husband. I'm with complete strangers. I did not go through the whole process of introducing myself, dating them, etc., 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 to gain a relationship. You already went through that process, so you already picked the lock, you got inside, and now that door can open at whatever time and moment, right? Think about it. If you know how a Venus flytrap works, you'll know how to escape the Venus flytrap, depending. Now, let's move further, right? Because that last portion was just like life, right? So if you're driving on a straight line or a highway and the conditions change, right? You're on a perfectly fine road, street, etc., and then all of a sudden it starts raining, or all of a sudden it starts snowing, or all of a sudden an 18-wheeler didn't tie down certain things correctly and there's a spill everywhere. You have to dodge everything. Well, if you don't know how to handle your vehicle, well, then you're probably going to end up in an accident. I mean, how many of you have tried to drive on roads that were covered in ice and thought you could speed and drive the same way you do on normal roads and then quickly ended up in a car crash? Think about it. Now, the reason why I state this is because it cues everything up for the last point I want to make in this video. There's a difference between self-defense, martial arts, killing, murder, right? In self-defense, killing can happen. This is why in a courtroom it's sometimes called involuntary manslaughter. Even though you instigated the situation, whether it's verbally or physically. And yes, self-defense can be triggered verbally. So if you state you're going to do something and the other person that knows self-defense decides to be proactive or inform you before they are proactive, well, then don't ask for motive, or don't have the judge or somebody else ask for motive, because then the person that instigated everything still ends up in the bad situation, right? Martial arts, you're trained to fight, right? Round 1, round 2, round 3, round 4, etc. You're learning tactics, you're learning techniques, etc. When it comes to self-defense, you're learning real-life survival skills that can keep you alive when an aggressor comes that knows the same information or has been privy to information by way of an opposing party. Now, self-defense, as I stated, killing can happen. Murder is planned. So if you know martial arts and then you coerce and you plan out with a group and you share information and you say this, that, and the third are able to trigger this, this, and this, and then psychologically everybody could be a witness and lie that is in on it, so on and so forth, and then you could state this and then do this, and that's a plan. Right? You're planning someone's murder. This is why MK Ultra is so interesting, because, well, look at JFK, right? Not JFK as an individual or as a metaphor like the Charlie Kirk or the Friends thing, right? But look at the history of JFK, right? He was murdered, right? It wasn't self-defense. It wasn't instantaneous. Somebody had to know what was going on the day it was going on, where they would be, etc., just for that to occur and for them to get away with it so many years later, right? Even if it's done through hypnosis, subliminal messaging, etc., you're trying to steer somebody with audio, etc., because you think you're brainwashing them, but they're seeing how the students interact with the training by the instructor allowing them to utilize certain technologies, features, and everything else, right? To emphasize speed of understanding, right? Through the looking glass they go, right? And so what's murder and what's killing? See, even if you're a spiritual person, you have to ask yourself, why did an individual get off and another one pass away, right? Well, I would have to ask further questions, because it comes down to understanding. Why was one portrayal of an individual getting loud in an area in which that they could have been prosecuted right then and there, but then they got prosecuted later? And then I watched the Book of Clarence along with other things, which brings further understanding to whomever watches that video. If the person knew what was going to happen and they were going back home, wouldn't they say thank you? They wouldn't say, why has someone been forsaken? That question would have never came up, right? The other stuff would have never came up. See, it was written in a puzzle and that was intertwined or woven or sewn together, so on and so forth, right? In order to see who can see through everything, right? Remember in class, if you've gotten to seeing class by now, there is reading in between the lines, right? Some people will hold up 3 fingers and say, oh, read in between the lines or whatever, to try to say F you or whatever the case may be. Or, oh, bless your heart, when in actuality, they're just saying F you to your face, right? They're sounding sweet, right? And in marketing, you have to sound sweet or use words that people understand to sway them to do business with you. And then in sales, you utilize the same vernacular. In marketing, you use sociology, which is the study of masses, and you understand psychology in a long, because you're speaking to a lot of people. In sales, you understand the individual, because 9 times out of 10, you're only speaking to 1 or 2 people at a time, right, to close the deal. So one person can handle the psychology. Nobody asks why psychology, the P is silent. But in sociology, the S is very well vocal, so on and so forth, right? Because it's normally unseen, because it's the masses that they're speaking to from behind somewhere else, right? Kind of like a producer, a director, etc., right? And then everybody else on the field. Similarly in marketing, you have the marketer or somebody running point, then you have a graphic designer, then you have a copywriter, then you have this, then you have analytics, then you have legal, then you have policy that you have to go over with legal, because the marketer has to understand what is legally allowed to be said based upon company policy, because policy is not law. Ethics falls within law, but the business is different than another business, so their ethics might be different, so you have to understand that as well. Policies might be different when you work with different things, just like laws might be different when you're advertising in different states. So there's a very close connection there, right? So you have to understand that there's a difference between self-defense and martial arts, right? Are you trained to fight, or are you trained to win, right? If you're trained to win, well, then you must practice self-defense. If you're trained to fight, well, then just practice martial arts. You can fight for a long time, but eventually the fight has to subside, right? There's this thing where I noticed that nobody ever challenges the referee. Nobody ever challenges the judge. Nobody ever challenges the priest, etc., right? Why? Because they are not only skilled, but last time I checked, they wore the same patterns that a martial arts instructor would wear, right? They wear the white gi or the gi with the black belt, right? And when they wear the black belt with the gi, etc., you understand that they are the instructor in the room. You can inform them, you can educate them, and plead your side like a courtroom or like a football team, right? Flag on the play, so on and so forth. Let's rewind the footage, etc. Or, ref, did you not see that? Blah 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 blah. Let's call a timeout. Let's look at the footage, etc. Let's see if we could get this turned over or reversed, right? Or, Your Honor, on behalf of my client, so on and so forth, I understand that the plaintiff is trying to make a case based upon false allegations, but due to scrutiny, as well as strict observation, as well as the surveillance that was conducted, this person did put in the time, effort, and everything else to learn things. They did travel the 2.5 hours to the law library. They did go online and research everything. They did learn how to communicate, so on and so forth, in a way that we could understand what they were stating, and we do understand that they were probing, and they should have never interfered or tried to step into an area in which they should not have, because they wanted to flex or get training or violate something, right? We also looked at their Dropbox account and noticed that Germany was there when they were never using a VPN in Germany, but it looks as though someone from Germany deleted their Dropbox file or put them in a compromising situation in a nefarious attempt to see how much they could recall, remember, store, yada yada. So, Your Honor, I'm hoping and begging for leniency, as well as, an abrupt, immediate expulsion of any charges, and to overturn and expunge such things that are on the defendant's record or wherever that may be wrongdoing, such as any type of defamation or slander that might have been shared to the outside populace by the plaintiffs who did not know what was going on. If something's supposed to look real, but someone is being trained or instructed, then what do you say? Your Honor, if you were my instructor and I lashed out on you, how would you feel? What would you do? And would you expunge the record? And then, of course, the judge normally would probably do whatever that happened to the defendant and what the attorney or lawyer stated, etc., because, well, they could see both sides and they got educated along with the jury that was viewing everything. So you have to understand that, right? Because if you don't understand that, then you're not going to be able to make judgments clearly in life, right? If something was planned out and coerced, well, there's multiple individuals, it was planned, and if you actually knew what somebody was up to, why'd you take so much time to carry out and execute? If you were trying to play a game, why did you do this whole thing? If you were trying to carry out psychological warfare when that violates certain things, or falsify information just to enact something so that you could get away with something without the acknowledgement of other things occurring and protections that get put in place, then you were up to no good, and you were either being lazy, nefarious, or wanted to get rich and not realize that there's consequences to that. So hopefully a judge could explain that, or a ref could explain that, or whatever, right? You saw what happened with Sammy Sosa when he corked his bat and cheated, right? Yeah, he knocked it out of the park, but when you see that he cheated, all of a sudden, real quickly, everybody turned against him, right? Similarly to life, right? If you're going to be a leader and a boss, people will respect you, but if you're going to be a tyrant, your team will even turn against you very quickly, because you don't care. And if you don't care, there's no trust. And if there's no trust, ain't nobody doing a damn thing. They will gladly team up together because they already know you, connected to you, etc. Turn around and take you out and put somebody else in place that they prefer, that they like more. So hopefully you guys got something out of this and you enjoyed this video. So I will see you in the next one of Finding Freedom and or Alpha Gents. Talk to you later. Peace.